But already gone past your seat. However, I'm going to give you a. In fact, let me just go down, give you time to maybe absorb. Yes, and then we can come back if any of the members come in the meantime. Then we'll just catch up. So, Honorable Skosana, I think at this point your time would start now, but I just want to make sure that the timer is is working. Yeah. Okay, Honorable Skosan, I shall hand over to you for a period of 20 minutes.
No, thank you very much, Chair, and good evening to everyone. We welcome the presentation that we received from both Mr. Songelwa and Mr. Charakupa, and we appreciate an opportunity to engage with them on their sworn statements that they've submitted. Yeah, Mr. Songelwa, in your view, on what basis did the RAF require debt restructuring?
Excuse me,
I'm asking about the issue of debt restructuring. What was the basis for that?
The microphone, Mr. Songa. Yeah.
Thank you. The basis was that the high-level sheriff attaches the RAF's assets. Because of that, a mitigating action would be to raise debt or loan to settle the RNYP, thus keeping away the sheriff, and then you deal with servicing the debt over a period of time. Could be a repayment period of 5 years, or depending. If I'm asking, that's one of the ideas. What to settle the RNYP, that will keep the sheriff away, so to speak.
Also, there were sheriffs already who were taking steps to attach some of your assets.
Yes, there were. I remember some of the Cape Town attorneys were attaching our assets. Yes.
And then, with regards to the issue of accounting policy, changing of the accounting policy, was there any internal review conducted within the RAF regarding that, or it was just a decision taken by the executive management without any thorough review of the process where key people were involved in that particular process?
I was requested at high level to consider the change in accounting policy. In my view, in fact, they were saying follow, for example, the SASSA approach. They don't have a huge liability, yet they pay grants. And I said, no, desktop research, SASSA is an agent of the Department of Social Development, so they don't have a liability. And the Department of Social Development is using a cash modified accounting, so they don't make an accrual. That was the answer. So to answer, and then from there, it was then, I should say I was left, then this other action was taken. There was not really a review as such. Well, then what happened was to ask for this opinion from the accounting firms to sort of advise us as to is it doable. I think I said Mora Incorporated, for example, gave an opinion, and that would be it.
And then what was the motivation of the executive management to disregard the ASB opinion regarding the use of IPSAS 42? Because our understanding is that ASB, like you also indicated earlier, that they are the people who are responsible for accounting standards, especially for the public sector in this particular country. So what was their motivation, the executive management, for disregarding the opinion of the ASB?
I wouldn't really know, because by then, remember, I was moved from acting CFO on the 2nd of June 2020. We had used the previous accounting policy, IFRS 4 approach, for example. Hence, we got the clean audit for 31st March 2020. 2nd June 2020, I'm gone. So now 2021 is a new accounting thing. So a new team came, for example, there was an acting CFO. The person that reported to me, I was the general manager, as a senior manager, financial accounting, was put into this project, somehow sidelining me, and then she then ran with the project. I think that's where some of the discussions would have happened at, and then I wouldn't really know as to what happened thereafter, ASB, whatever. I only saw when now they were going to court, interdicting AGSA from issuing their opinion, as well as, it was a two-part, part B, rather retracting or reviewing their opinion, if I may answer that way. So I wouldn't really have the details.
All right, no, thanks for that. So was there any procurement process followed to source the external providers, which is Morar Incorporated and PwC, and what cost, and at what cost was that?
So there is a panel of auditors for internal audit, because this would, for example, have been, as you said, internal review would have been done by internal audit. They say for capacity and to get more experienced firm, for example. So they went out to sourcing from their panel a service provider. It was done thoroughly in terms of checking the requirements. I think they issued an RFQ to source the service provider, and they ended up with Mora. The question I had was, you've got Mora as a preferred service provider, they come with the opinion. When then you move to PwC, my question, was there a link in terms of saying it, don't you take number two, how did it happen? But to answer you, there was a proper process in terms of requesting internal audit to provide, to source a service provider to give an opinion on the accounting or change in accounting policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And then coming to Mr. Charakupa, through you, Chair. I see that in paragraph 82 of your zoning statement, you indicate that IPSAS 42 reduced or contributed to the reduction of the finalization of claims from 2020 to 2024. I want you to elaborate on that, because initially I think my understanding was that the aim of using IPSAS 42 was to underestimate your liabilities, so that you've got a good balance sheet and good annual financial statement, so that it becomes easier for you to get a loan and stuff like that. However, with regards to specifically to the finalization of claims, that there's been a reduction in the finalization of claims, and so you are stating IPSAS 42 as one of the reasons. I think in paragraph 42 of your zoning statement. Can you elaborate on that? That in what way?
Okay. So, Honorable, I will refer you to page 23, paragraph 80. Right. So there is the timeline in terms of processing of a claim. So as I indicated earlier on, I'll just repeat it for clarity. Then I'll answer the question. We move from accident date to registration date. That first pillar is IBNR. Those are claims in transit, right? Then the second pillar, from registration date to settlement or offer date, right? Settlement or offer date, that's the date when an offer is made. the claim is settled, right? So the previous accounting standard is the liability for that under the IFRS 4 is highlighted there in the blue arrow at the bottom. It's claims from the date of accident. It includes IBNR, ORC, and claims at payment stage, which is at the last pillar. Now, for the last pillar, you see there is two categories, C1 and C2, where C1 is ONYR, which is offers that are not yet requested for payment, and RNYP, which is offers that have been requested for payment. So IPSA's liability is the red arrow, which is just C1 plus C2, which is your offers that have not yet been requested and requested not yet paid. Right. So if you want to keep the IPSA's liability low, one would say you then slow down the passage of claims from the B pillar there, from the processing, from the ORC, you keep them there for longer. Because the moment you keep processing them, they move to C. Then they are now on the financial statements. But if you don't have efficient processing in pillar B, claims will stay there for longer. So one would then make that argument that it would seem that if you give a management of an entity power to determine which accounting policy to use, which standard to use in making their accounting policy, even if they choose an accounting standard such as this, a flawed one or one that's not approved by ASB, they can then, in addition to that, implement measures to control the liability. So this is where one then can say, by intentionally and unintentionally slowing down processing of claims, you are actually keeping the IPSA's liability low, because all these other claims that are in your registration pillar, verification and validation, merits assessment, quantum determination, litigation, they don't count towards the liability under IPSAS 42. Although in the previous accounting policy under IFRS, they would have counted. So that's where you then have a relationship between the number of claims finalized, because finalized, it means moving past point the settlement stage. Because once it passes that, it's on this side. It counts as a liability. So that's where the relationship is.
All right. No, thanks for that. Now, with regards to the issue of the average cost per claim, I think you are indicating that the average cost per claim rose from about 138,000 in 2019-2020 to about 235,000 in 2020-2021. And I think that happened after the disbandment of the panel of attorneys. And my understanding is that at that stage you were then using legal practitioners from state law office. So what does this mean? Because when you had a panel of attorney which are private law firms, cost per claim was less, but now you are using legal practitioners from state law attorney's office, but then the cost becomes higher. What is the issue? What is that makes the cost per claim to be higher?
Yes. So I think one possible reason, so this is a bit speculative, right? One possible reason, because what this picture tells us in terms of this graph, which shows the increasing trend in terms of average cost per claim, it just means that it was more expensive, or more legal costs were being paid to finalize a single claim, right? So either the office of the state attorney, the staff complement there, were not as experienced as your panel attorneys, or the efficiency, therefore, of processing claims per attorney was low. That's one. Or two, the panel, maybe their rates were just cheaper per finalized claim in terms of the volumes. Maybe because they were getting lots of volumes, they would have charged more. But I think in terms of rough operations department, if they get into the details of what actually constituted these payments, the breakdowns, they will probably be able to show what was the contributing factor in terms of the settlement, the average spent per settled claim increasing. But yeah, the numbers as they are, they show that that cost per claim just increased, kept increasing all the way up to 2024.
Okay, thanks. Now, with regards to the issue of the fuel levy, are you saying that the reduced liabilities in terms of the IPSAS 42 influenced the state not to increase the fuel levy?
In a way, so if I take you, yes, to 129, paragraph 129. So there is a table there. The top table says table 1. So it shows that when the RAF, the top line is the net fuel levy. The second line is the total liabilities reported on the RIF financial statements, right? So you can see that from 2013-14 all the way to 2019-20, the liability of the RIF was reported based on the IFRS standard, which included all the claims from IBNR, ORC, as well as your settled claims. In 2018-19, that was 273 billion. In 2019-20, that was 332 billion. In all those years, what then happens is, in terms of budgeting and National Treasury announced RIF fuel levy increases, usually I think in February when they do the budget statement. In table 2 there, you can see, I think in the line number 4, the adjustment that was given to RIF. The bottom line shows that in 2014-15, RIF's fuel levy was 104. It then increased in 2015-16 to 154. And then it stayed there. I think the reason there was because there was a 50% increase in 2015-16, and then 2016-17 did not have. But again, when you continue to 17, 18, 19, 19, 20, you can see all those increases all the way up to 21, 22. There, the baseline that they were using in terms of approving the revenue, one can then assume that it's the balance sheet, the total liabilities that are shown on the fund balance sheet. And then once that changed, I think there from 2020 to 21, you can see the liability then dropped from 332.4 billion to 31.5. And then 27.7, 35.7, 36.3. And then during that period, you can see now the future years in terms of fuel levy adjustment, no increase was then given by the National Treasury. So then one can say there that it could be that the financial statements were sending a wrong signal, that they believed that based on the financial statements, it's healthy, the fund is fine. So whether to increase fuel levy or any other additional funding, it would probably be difficult to justify solely based on the financial statements. I think I'll give Brafik just to add on that. But yes, that's where that connection is. Thanks.
Mr. Charakupa is 100% correct. In the past, we would go to National Treasury as a RAF to motivate. I wanted to say to go with a hat in hand to ask for fuel increase, and the motivation would be the situation of our financials, the liability, and ended the liability specifically, and on the basis of that, we'll say, could we even have, if it's 5 cents or 1 cent? It makes a difference. Could be 3 cents, because you're talking of volumes of liters of petrol, or rather fuel. It translates to something at least. A half a loaf is better than nothing. But since now the figures have changed, you can't go, because they say you're actually doing good. I think there was, even in my view, a perception that perhaps the previous figures were not okay. Hence wouldn't get the increase. But you can say now it's actually a challenge that we're no longer getting the increase, standing at 218 cents for a long time. Thank you. I think I've answered.
Yes, no, my last question, Chair, which is directed to both of you. I think any one of you can answer it. Would you say the new operating model dismally failed, considering that the purported nominal savings on legal fees were offset by higher settlements and default judgments, with a net loss of about 22.88 billion rands over 2 years?
I'll give it a try, then Mr. Charakupa will finish. Based on the numbers and statistics, it looks like it failed. I think that the new operating model was a very, very brilliant concept, but what happened is the implementation of it. For example, substituting panel of attorneys with state attorneys, timing was volume. The timing of implementing ICMS, which is the integrated claims management system, that would automate some of the processes, that didn't really happen. So in a way, much as was a good thing, but it didn't really achieve what it was meant for, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable. I think I echo the same sentiments to say it's the implementation. Was the idea of insourcing legal practitioners, it could have reduced legal costs. So but one needed to hire enough of them, and probably also, the experience and the ability to do the job. If you hire competent people and you have this enough number to handle the volumes, one would say it would have worked. But then, given the complaints and the feedback from operations and even, I think, the trade unions, NUMSA at that time, in terms of the capacity and the volumes and all that, it gives an indication that there was no sufficient capacity. And then also you then tie with the period since then up even until now, it seems that that capacity issue was never then addressed, because if it was addressed in, let's say, the first year or the second year, you would have seen a spike and then a drop, and then you would then get the confidence that the management responded to the initial shortfall in capacity in the first year or so. But then I think the numbers that we looked at, especially the cost of settlement, the average cost of settlement, show that seems to not have been addressed over the period, which then made the new operating model to not yield real savings.
Thank you, Honorable Skosan. You were literally, your last question was on 19 minutes. Honorable Bill, I'll come to you. I just have a very one question, and it's a yes or no. And that is, when this decision of the panel of attorneys and alternatives were taken, were you were in the general manager finance role? Is that correct?
No, I was actually the acting CFO.
Okay, good. So was there an exercise you did to say, with the attorneys, we've got X number of cases, X number of warm bodies, lawyers belonging to various attorneys, and therefore we will need to replace them with a similar number or close of attorneys, and this is how much is internal attorneys or at the state attorney, and this is how much it's going to cost, and therefore we're comparing the two, and now we can make the decision. Were you asked to conduct an exercise like that?
No, I was not asked from finance, and it appeared when the CEO or acting CEO at the time that will have state attorneys. The model would work. It sounded like there are somewhere these state attorneys. You can access them and use them. But to answer you, there was no cost-benefit analysis done or comparison between the two.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Pila, let me stop and restart the clock. Over to you, Honorable Pila.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening, everyone. And good evening to our guest. I heard Mr. Charakupa referring to Mr. Songelwa, that bra. Then I said, when you heard the word bra, you have to know that that person grew up in the township.
The Grootman. They're talking about the Grootman.
No, you will again repeat that because he's used to it. You will hear him saying bra. But the bramang, I didn't hear it. It's long that we have been sitting here, so we have to laugh a little bit. On paragraph 10 of Mr. Songelwa's affidavit, he said his core part of, or a core part of his role was to oversee how the RAF valued its outstanding claims obligation. So I just want to check, referring to the organizational structure review, that as the formal general manager, finance, what impact did the organizational structure review had on the department you were overseeing?
The OSR, the impact of it in my department was that initially I had 5 portfolios. It was actuarial, treasury, financial accounting, financial management, and management accounting, all headed by senior managers. In the new structure, the name of the title or position was changed to head financial management and reporting. It now had 3 portfolios. Rather treasury, as I said, it had long ago moved. Actuarial, though formally, officially, it had not moved, but for some reason they were now sort of managed by the investment office, which was a new office under the new structure, and then I was left with the 3: financial accounting, financial reporting, as well as management accounting. Maybe if I may add just talking of a new structure then. So there's a now head of financial management and reporting, which it's got lesser portfolios than the previous one. So the old one, general manager of finance, wanted a chartered accountant. The new one and the new structure did not want a CA. It's got 3 portfolios compared to the 5. And the other thing that was very critical, the GM finance position, my position was on a fixed term contract. This one became a permanent position. And that's it, pay for my aid as well. So for me, because of the permanent person, I cannot automatically get it, which I understood, and then the OSR kicked in. Funny thing happened. So I've got 3 people reporting to me. One of them, because they say he was appointed in the new structure, was made to report to the CFO directly, with the saying that the position of the head of financial management and reporting is vacant. Yet I had 2 other senior managers reporting to me who had been given the, in the OSR letters to say then they now belong to the new structure. So that was a very funny thing, but it's a discussion for another day. Thank you.
Thank you. On paragraph 5, on your background with REF, you said you joined REF's finance department on 1st October 2015. Meaning you spent 9 years and couple months there because you left in April 2025. Has it always been common practice at the REF to bring in specialists in the organization during your term in the organization?
Oh, I beg your pardon, Honorable Bila. Sorry, just quick.
I was saying, because of your experience of 9 years and couple months in the RAF, has it always been common practice at the RAF to bring specialists?
No, not at all. It was a new thing. It happened, as I said, when we had the new CEO who arrived on the 9th of September 2019. Yeah, we never had specialists coming in, I think. But then from the 4th of May 2020, it became a trend. Thanks.
And on paragraph 16, or starting from 14, 15, and 16, you indicated that the RAF obtained unqualified, even clean audit opinions in some years. It was during your time where you were the acting CFO. I think I'm correct. But come to the year end, 31 March 2021, the reports were not submitted to the Auditor General. Even in the year ended 31 March 2022, reports were not submitted again. According to your knowledge, did this report end up being submitted to the Auditor General for auditing?
So these reports, thanks for the question. These reports, we are referring to the claims valuation reports. Up to 31st March 2020, the actuaries, both internal, statutory, and the peer review one, they would do these valuation reports, which would use or reflect the claims liability value into our financial statements. So this ended in 31st March 2020, and AG, everybody was happy. The amount was huge, must say, but it was realistic. It was the estimate we had. And then in 2021, when there was a change in accounting policy, these reports were discontinued, and then from there on, they were no longer done. I think Mr. Charakupa will also add, they were no longer done. The saying was that the IPSAS 42 does not require claims valuation by actuaries, because for the reason that there's some information or some numbers or some years or some claims were excluded. So to answer you, from 2021 and onwards, it was no longer there. Maybe, thank you. Take over, please.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'll just add a line of clarity. So for 31 March 2021, we did the valuation reports, we worked on them. We even approved, they were even submitted to the office of the CFO and EXCO, and they were approved by the board. But then the valuation amount, I think if I refer to paragraph 54 in my affidavit, there's a table which shows that. But then what happened then, effective from 31 March 2021, the figure from the actuarial report was no longer used in the financials, because the standard only looked at those two categories of offers not requested and offers requested. So that was 31 March 2021. The report was done, but it was never submitted to the Auditor General, because I think the view was then it was not necessary for them, since the management had adopted a new accounting standard. And then for March 2022, yes, I think then the reports were not done at all. I think the instruction at that point was the report, the actuarial evaluation report, as we had done it before all the years, was no longer required. I think the acting chief investment officer at that time indicated that he didn't need the actuarial evaluation reports. He was going to determine liabilities in his own. I think he had a new methodology for that. So that so from 31 March 2022 onwards, I don't know what report he then did, which he said he was going to do in terms of valuation of the claims liability. Thanks. Oh yeah, Pravik.
Thank you. Point of correction then, I want to say then the reports were discontinued from 31st March 2022. My apology for saying the 31st March 2021, as Mr. Charakupa has explained. Thanks.
I can remember the paragraph where you were requested to write or to prepare the motivation. But I just want to check if you can share with us what reasons were included in the motivation that you prepared for the revolving credit facility or debt restructuring of 15 billion to 20 billion.
Thank you. The reasons given was that the sheriff comes and attaches RAF's assets. So we wanted to sort of settle the debt as far as the RNYP, or rather the claimants, are concerned. It would settle that by borrowing money from a financer, be it bank or whoever is doing the funding. So the RNYP is settled. All we owe is now the bank, and then at least if you owe the bank and you pay it over 5 or 10 years period, and you won't be having a problem with the sheriff. I must say that it was a short-term thing, because in the long run, you would have this loan standing in there. The claims and accidents are happening in the country. Another RNYP would be growing again. So you're fighting a revolving kind of a challenge. Thanks.
Thank you. On paragraph 22 and 23, you are referring to the contract of the consultant, which expired in June 2022, and the CFO did not recommend the appointment of another statutory service provider. According to your knowledge, what were the reasons why he was not recommending the appointment of another service provider?
So the claims valuation by actuaries has now been stopped, so to speak, because last time it was put in the financials was 31st March 2020. Although it was made, the valuation was made for 31st March 2021, it was not used and put into the financials. So it became then obvious that going forward, you don't really need the actuaries, which is, for example, the True South was our statutory actuaries. So from there, in June 22, when their contract expired, it was just a let lapse, and they were never re-engaged, or never went to the market to source a statutory actuary. That was the reason, because those reports were no longer used, because the new accounting policy had kicked in that did not want the claims valuation. Thanks.
Thank you. Can you please, Mr. Songelwa, elaborate on the message that you indicated on paragraph 28 about the CEO who claimed through an internal communique?
Maybe let me read it, Honorable Bila. The CEO claimed through an internal communique, I no longer have a copy, that the OSR process was necessitated by structural changes and the introduction of digitization and modernization in the form of integrated claims management system. The ICMS was meant to automate claims processing. So when the entity undertook the organizational structure review, one of the reasons advanced was that there will be an automation of the functions of the RAF, claims space specifically, and the tool that would be used would be the integrated claims management system. So that was put as a reason for to organize or reorganize the organization, with the saying that some of the people would be substituted by the machines, for example.
And then on the 17th of April 2025, after all these events, you left the road accident fund employment. I just want to check, you left the RAF because the cost of victimization on you was too much to bear, or it was just that you were not given a listening ear, or you were not want to be involved in things that are doing, not following the processes or the policy or the act that are being used in the road accident fund?
Thank you for the question. So, I was on my desk knowing that my contract is coming to an end on the 30th of September this year. In January, I wrote to the CFO, my line manager, and my colleagues that report to me. January, I think it was the first week of this year, saying that 30th September this year will be my final time. My contract is coming to an end. I would like to, as early as possible, do the handover, so that, you know, it's a 6 months time, no, rather 9 months time. That was my message. There was not really a response in terms of saying it's fine, whatever. So it's now January, February. In April, 14th April was on a Monday. I'm sitting on my desk. There's nothing pending in terms of a disciplinary hearing or anything, nothing. I'm just taking it easy. As I say, every report I make at the end of the month or a review, I share with my colleagues that this is what I'm doing, so that when September comes, my desk is clear, I've done proper handover. On the 14th of April, that month, it was on a Monday, I get a call from lawyers, the lawyers that I used a year ago for the other case I had, but now there was no pending case. They say to me, what's going on? I said, what? They said they've received a letter from RAF's lawyers saying that I've got the elsewhere, saying that road accident fund versus Victor termination notice. So on the 14th of April, I was given a notice that I must vacate the offices by the 17th of April. This was only 3 days really, because 18th was a Good Friday. So, and with the saying that I'll receive any statutory benefits due to me, including salaries I would have received until 30th September 2025. And that was it. So, from a money point of view, I'm getting money for going home. So, and I went back to HR and said, what's going on? Why is the letter coming from the lawyers and not from my line manager? Because it triggers money, both from the RAF point of view, because they've got to pay their lawyers. I have got to pay the lawyer. I even said to them, I will not pay this lawyer because there was no reason for you to communicate with me, with the lawyer. I'm on my desk. I expect HR to write to me or my manager or anything so that we talk. It was just an impromptu thing. We wrote then back to the lawyer saying that we disagree with this approach. It's a fruitless and wasteful expenditure, really. It's money spent in vain in terms of PFMA that could have been avoided. I'm on my desk. I could not understand the reason. But they went ahead and said on the 17th, I handed over my laptop to my manager. And in May or June, I'm not sure of the date, I was paid in lump sum. And then from that April, I was at home, May up to end September when it ended, having had the payout. My concern as an accountant and knowing the PFMA, I feel strongly that was a classic case of a fruitless and wasteful expenditure, because I was available, there was no case, there was no nothing. But the challenge for it now, I then get an invoice from my lawyers. I said, what for? They said, for this letter they wrote me. But I said, can you see now, I've got to part with some money, and not my own making, can't RAF at least pay this one? And I ended up paying it, and that was the end of it. So I think I've answered you in terms of what happened and how I ended up paying RAF. But it was at the right in terms of the contract had expired, and I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this will be my last question, Honorable Chairperson. You tried to advise, but there was resistance by the management to revert to the previous accounting standard that were used before, while you were still obtaining unqualified audit opinion. In your opinion, what can be or what could be the resistance for by the management?
I really don't know. I even tried to speculate. Maybe my thinking is that because we had that debt restructuring thing, so the balance sheet or the books of the RAF needed to look good for you to go to the market to raise the loan. So perhaps the change in accounting policy, as we've seen, it made the financials look good, lesser liability. So it would really be, there would be a resistance in terms of going back to the old thing that would show a big liability, because it would have an impact on this idea of debt restructuring. It is my opinion. I don't have any evidence of it. It's just a thought.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pila. On, believe it or not, 20 minutes exactly. I can't believe it. Like literally 20 minutes and 2 seconds. Thank you very much. Honorable Neil May.
Good evening, Chair, and good evening, colleagues and our visitors here today. I want to go back to the organizational structure review. To your knowledge, was this a consultative process involving internal stakeholders, or was it a top-down decision communicated by executive management or the board?
It was a well-communicated strategy. Very communicated with the employees, those that are unionized and those that are not unionized. And then I must say it did not really become effective. There was some, because unions were putting some facts across as to how it should happen, and to a point that it, shall I say, it deadlocked. It was just stopped. And then we ended up having at one stage parallel processes around this OSR, where some people would be identified that they are not in the new structure. They would be put into a pool. But what would happen is you'd see advertisement of positions. And the question was, why is the entity advertising positions? Was there people that in a pool? You should first give a chance to those people that in a pool, then only advertise. In other words, the expectation would put a moratorium on new positions until you clear and finish with the OSR. So it was not perfect at all. It didn't end good. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, just to add, Honorable Member. So I think in terms of when it started, I think it was the 2020-21 financial year, managers were requested, I think it was again a consultant that came in and requested inputs from managers to give inputs in terms of their units and their divisions, in terms of what resources they needed, what would be the proper capacity for each unit. I think that exercise happened. Inputs were submitted, I think, through the general managers and the executives. And then after a while, I think after about 2 months or so, they came with an initial proposal, the drafters, the consultant company at that point, of the organization. So the first leg was consultative in terms of bottom up. But I think after they came back with the initial proposals that were based on input from management, they then changed. I think it then changed. All those numbers and the proposals, especially I remember from the claims operations department, in terms of the capacity they had requested, was then changed. I'm not sure if that was after an ex-committee or after a HR consultant or something like that. But then the inputs from that point on were then coming from top down. So the final structure that then ended up being finalized by the consultant, I would say, was maybe hybrid of some sort. Because initially it started as a bottom up, then halfway through, I'm not sure if it's because then what came out from the consultative process was not liked or something like that. It then changed. And then the numbers, management, most managers then got a proposal of resources, but that were not what they had requested for. But I think in terms of RIF, HR and human capital will be able to shed more light around that, but that's what I remember from how the process initially started. Yeah, I think Brafik mainly touched on after that final report and the implementation part. But yeah, I just wanted to go back about 6 months to a year before that final structure. Thank you.
May I add as well, if it may be possible to go to the VS3 in the attachments, just to show the numbers between the old structure and the new structure. It's just an extract, because this went on now to becoming or to bring in a retrenchment process. What I'm highlighting there on VS3, item number 9B, it just gives the number of employees employed by the RAF. The previous structure had an approved number of 3126 positions, whereas the current structure had 2654. So the difference between these two numbers is 472. The new structure would have lesser staff members, and but what was challenging as well, just without adding more, was that the cost would be more, though the number of staff had reduced. I would like to add.
No, thank you very much for that. Before I ask the next question, is who were the consultants that did this restructuring?
It was a PwC. Thank you.
Now, in this, the new structure that you had there, and we'd already heard that it was not standard practice for RAF to appoint external advisors to the CFO. Can you confirm that 4 of these advisors were brought in from the City of Johannesburg and 1 from the Road Traffic Management Corporation, to your knowledge? And were those in the restructuring? You would have seen, if we can see, there doesn't seem to be any positions in the CEO's office as advisors. Am I right?
Actually, they came in as specialists in the office of the CEO. So I take it that even if they're not in the structure, I do not know the leeway that a CEO is given to have specialists in their office. So I would not be that part. Where they came from, I also do not know, unfortunately. So thanks.
No, thank you. I think, as we'd heard before, there was no formal recruitment and vetting procedures that followed these appointments. Did these appointed financial specialists and the CIO bring in skills that were not already present within the RAF's existing finance or ICT teams, to your knowledge?
Maybe let me start with the vetting part. I'm not sure about whether they were vetted or not since they came. I think via the Department of Transport, I stand to be corrected. So perhaps a rough HR should provide information as to whether they were vetted and what was the process. I'm not sure about the second part, or whether the skills. I must say the first batch that came, the senior finance specialist, was a chartered accountant. She spent a year. She came on the 4th of May and left on the 7th of May the following year, 2021. The other person was the treasury specialist. I'm talking about the one that affected or were for my department. Treasury specialist. Up to now, I do not know what qualifications he has. I really do not know. And then I do not know the rest really in terms of skills and knowledge. Thank you.
And then, obviously, on the 1st of July 2020, a specialist for re-engineering was appointed. What was the defined scope or purpose of this role, to your knowledge? Was these an internal restructuring report or business plan linked to this position?
So the person, the re-engineering specialist, came, I think, after a month or 2. He was then sent to be an acting general manager at SCM, supply chain management, and that's what happened.
I want to go back to that. So at SCM, was there no senior manager in that position, or was there a vacancy for this particular person to be redirected there? I'm sorry, it's an HR. I'm going to be getting to the point. Thanks.
So there was a vacancy. I think there was somebody acting as a general manager, SCM. That person then was substituted, and then the specialist came and became the acting general manager for the supply chain management.
The other question that I had, similarly, an ICT specialist and a security specialist were also appointed. And what I wanted to double check with you, were there already ICT and security managers in place at the time? I think we did hear previously that there was a security manager. Was a skills gap analysis or business case conducted to justify bringing in these roles from outside the organization?
This is my opinion. For the ICT specialist, it is my opinion that the ICT of RAF is so comprehensive that it deserves to have a chief information officer, CIO. However, with the changes, there was no more CIO in the new structure. Instead, they've got head of a ICT. So, linked to that, the specialists would have come in under those auspices, but I wouldn't really get you into it. I'm not very clear as to how the ICT structure works, but just my high-level knowledge. Thank you. As for security, I don't have details. I heard my colleagues were here in the first week speaking as to what happened in their situation or in their department.
In your opinion, were these appointments part of a broader strategy to place close associates of the former CEO in key positions?
Shall I say tough question for me, Honorable Nilmi?
Sorry, in your opinion?
In my opinion. May I skip that one? Thank you.
And my last question with regards to the specialists. At what pay grade level were these specialists appointed? Were their salary packages aligned with RAF's approved remuneration structure, or were there deviations?
That's a very good question. Again, I don't have an answer. I'm failing. I think human resources perhaps would be able to provide that information. It's a very, very interesting question. But I think because of confidentiality around salaries, I wouldn't know. Sorry.
Coming back to the finance aspect, were key finance roles affected or undermined by parallel structures such as these newly appointed advisors?
Oh, I thought you were sorry, Honorable. Are you referring to me or to my neighbor?
It can go to both. Thank you.
Parallel structures, maybe then the question, please, sorry.
Were key finance roles affected or undermined by parallel structures such as these newly appointed advisors?
Yes, they were very, very, very undermined in my space specifically. So I am the General Manager of Finance. I've got 5 portfolios: actuarial, treasury, financial accounting, finance reporting, as well as management accounting before this change. First thing that happened on the 4th of May 2020, the specialists come. In July, the specialist treasury is given a position of acting general manager for treasury. That position was not in the structure. They just took one of my portfolios and put the person in it. The other part was when they came in on the 4th of May. At that stage, I was the acting CFO. On the 2nd of June, I was removed from the position of acting CFO, and one of the specialists, senior specialist finance, was made as an acting CFO. So indeed, this had an impact in the functions. I'm not sure whether I've answered appropriately.
No, thank you. And this is my last question for Mr. Charakupa. When you showed us the claims categories and averages, something that you mentioned, and that is the average value per claim. I know you wanted to broaden your conversation with your input with regards to that. The last amount for the 31st of March 2024 was 286,825, and that is the average value per claim. Although there were only, all the claims were 45,600. Can you talk a little bit more just on that? I just wanted more clarity in with regards to the average value per claim. And could there be any fraud in there in any way for interest sake? Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, in terms of the, yes, average claim values, as I showed, they spiked in 2020, 2021 from 138,000 to more than 235,000. That was the 70% jump that I showed. I think on bullet 123 in the affidavit. That spike remained in 2022, 2023, and 2024. So 2024, it remained at 286,825. And I just checked as well. I think there's there's pages of financials that came in this afternoon. So they also show the 2025 value there. So it shows that in 2024, 2025, as of 31 March 2025, that value spiked further from 286,800 to 348,100. So in 1 year, it spiked by another 21%. So this 21% just came in. So that's the first part. The second part, I think you asked if there could be fraud there. Yeah, I think in the environment like the RIF, it's difficult to rule out fraud because the drivers, the main drivers since the discontinuation of the panel were two things: inflated claims and default judgments. So once people out there who knows the system realize that the RIF has no adequate capacity to defend claims, may start putting in claims that are not real, proper road accident victim claims that would pass the test if really there's tight quality assurance. So it's possible that there were a number of claims that would have then gone through the system, be it as a result of default judgments because there's no one to defend, or even just inflated claims where maybe people may have been injured, maybe not even from a road accident, but because the claims are not properly defended, they then would result in outflow of financial resources from the RIF. So it's possible, but then a detailed dive into the actual claim database would also assist. But I think the easiest part would be for management to really put tight controls around the investigation and settling of claims. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, sorry, I'm busy reading because your time is not up. So thank you very much, Honorable Neil May.
Chair, I'm passing it on to my colleague.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks.
It's you had 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes to spare. Honorable Beasley, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The new GNU in operation, huh? So just thank you to the presenters. I've got several questions. And Chair, if you can just give me a 5-minute warning, just so I don't run out of time. I think my key takeaway is that the new operating model, not only was it illegal with the new RAF Form 1, but it was highly, I don't know a word to make highly even higher, but it was highly inefficient and you just look at the numbers in front of us here, new claims registered in 2020, 303,000. It dropped to 79,000 in 2024. And then claims finalized dropped from 258,000 to 63,000. So the question to the two of you, who are the losers in this whole inefficiency?
Definitely the claimants, because when the numbers are reducing, the claimants suffer. That means there are claimants out there whose claims are not reaching us. Hence, perhaps the calls to some of the members querying about how far are our claims. So it's a problem. The claimant is really suffering.
And just to reiterate, the mandate of the RAF is to pay claims. So the claimants were the losers. So whose decision was it for this new model, new operating model?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable. I believe the operations department, the chief operations officer, or I think now it's called chief claims officer at that point, maybe would have had engagements with the CEO in terms of the operating model, and maybe suggestions came out around that. I'm just being speculative, but again, I think HR would be able to give a comprehensive information in terms of how did it come about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then the chair did ask you this question, and I just want you, because it is quite unbelievable that the CFO wasn't involved in costing the new operating model. Are you guys aware of any feasibility study being done and presented to the board on the new operating model, the impacts, what it would be? And as a CFO, as I say, I'm dumbfounded that you weren't involved in the process.
I think the question by the chair was more on the panel of attorneys, substituting them with the state attorneys. The question was there a cost-benefit analysis done, or was I involved? The answer was I was not involved. So the answer is still that I was not involved in the cost-benefit analysis for the for moving from panel of attorneys to the state attorneys, and that is it.
And were you aware of a costing model, feasibility model being done that excluded you?
No, I'm not aware. It might have been there, but maybe our sideline excluded, but I'm not aware.
Thank you. And I just note that there were 100 firms on the panel of attorneys with a minimum of 5 attorneys. That equals 500 attorneys available. It then went to 20 state attorneys. So in my numbers, the capacity dropped by 96%. Is that a fair assumption to make?
The numbers I heard recently was that in total now, the state attorneys are about 106. That number is still not sufficient compared to what I've just mentioned, for example, 100 times 5 and that thing. So the number is never adequate, in my opinion.
And then your document VS18, the pre-funding model analysis, it is an excellent document. I've gone through it. It's very well written. It makes perfect sense. What happened with that document? Did it end up in the dustbin, or was it ever elevated to the board? Because it is a brilliant document. And yes, what happened to that document?
Say Mr. Charakupa's document, a great job there.
Yes, so it's pre-funding model analysis that we did at the time. And during the funding model, that would have been in June 2022, I did then make presentations in terms of our findings, especially relating to the escalation in the costs of claims settlement and the impact that it was having in terms of the costs. So after that, after June 22, I then don't know what happened. But yeah, again, at the same time, around the same time, the acting CIO was then angry with the actuarial department, saying, you are negative, we are reducing legal costs, but you want to paint the picture that the new operating model is failing. So it then became a bone of contention. So it will be difficult to say, did he then take that message that emanated from our analysis forward to the board, or did they then make a decision to say, no, this is painting a negative picture? We can't then take the message to the board, and we need to just emphasize the message of reduction in total legal costs. Then that would be speculative, because from where I stand, what I then saw in terms of statements coming out and presentations was an emphasis on reduction in legal costs year in, year out. But then from that point, as I'm saying, from June 2022 and September, both myself and the actuarial manager, we were then suspended. And then in 2023, early 2023, we were then dismissed again. So it's difficult to then say what then happened to that signal message that we had sent. And I also know that operations from the chief operations officer's office, they were doing analysis of these average costs, and they submitted the similar reports that showed that costs had escalated like very, very high, flagging the same risk, because they also do monthly reports, and that same signal was sent to EXCO. So again, it then is difficult to say what then happened to those reports from EXCO going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, and you guys can't be blamed for the annual financial statements because you never put that information together, but the information is in there and the board sign off on those financial statements. So you don't need to be a chartered accountant, you don't need to be an actuarial science to actually see that the model is totally inefficient, yet the board of directors have actually signed off on that, and it's, yeah. And then, I mean, this might be a difficult question to answer. Do you think that you were under pressure to go against your own morals and your professional qualifications to paint a picture that actually wasn't real?
No, from my side, never. No, not. It never came to that. I was able to express my view on matters. Where I differed, I would be sidelined, and that they would just go ahead. And I must say, I was fortunate in that sense.
And yeah, I think from my side, I think it's a good question. Yeah, I totally believe that was the pressure on myself and my unit, even the actuarial manager. Even there was a senior actuarial specialist at the time, and just mentioning the increase in average claims. It was, I mean, every time that you would mention that to the acting chief investment officer, he would just become angry. And the pressure was just, I think in a number of occasions, as I was saying, he had then kind of accused the actuarial unit of painting a negative picture. So the implication was paint a better picture. But again, in terms of our professional ethics and integrity expectations, we couldn't do that. It was better than to try to persuade him in the hope that he would see the big picture and see that it was not for us, but this is actually comes down to rands and cents for the benefit of the claimant, because cost savings would really end up flowing to the claimants, and also in terms of the fiscus, pressure on the fiscus, we wouldn't be wasting financial resources. We needed to utilize that efficiently. So but I think on my unit the pressure was direct.
Yeah, and then just to highlight that most of that information is available in the annual financial statements, which the directors do sign off. Then just in terms of the debt structuring or restructuring, whatever you call it, how close did they get to actually getting debt restructuring? Because my financial sense said if they approached me as a bank, I would have run a million miles, because the annual financial statements are disclosed. It says there because their liabilities are undisclosed. So I would have run a million, trillion, zillion miles. So I don't know how they actually would have got debt structuring, because I'm sure National Treasury wouldn't have guaranteed the amount. So do you know how far they actually advanced? Because it actually seems quite a ludicrous idea, because no normal person would lend money to the RAF.
So the process ended at the board when the board approved in principle the raising of the debt or doing the debt restructuring. There was a condition that it had to go to National Treasury, and it ended there. I said it never really left the office. I think one of the reasons was the disclaimer opinion obtained from the auditors. So it just ended. It was put in the annual performance plans, and it was then withdrawn, and it ended there.
And then this is the big one for me. I've asked several people to give me an estimate of what they would say the liabilities of the RAF now if they use the correct accounting policies and the proper operating thing was done. So I've done a desktop calculation, because nobody's given me the answer, and I'm not an actuary, so please don't mock my figures, but somebody's had to put a number on the table, and I put a number of the table of 500 billion liabilities. And I'll just share quickly how I get to that figure. In 2020, the restatement, they effectively wrote off 300 billion with by the restatement of the financials, and I've escalated that with CPI to get to 2025. I've come up to 386. And then I've also said, arising from the inefficiencies in the system, including the new RAF form, there's been a reduction in claims, and this is of 142,000 registered claims of 142,000. I said the number of years is 3. It should actually be higher. And the average claim payout of 286,000. So I've worked out the amount of claims that are running in a parallel system that actually haven't been registered on the system. And I've come up with a figure of 120 billion. And if you add that together, you get to 500 billion. Would you say that is a fair estimate, bearing in mind I'm not an actuary?
Yeah, thank you. I would say it should range somewhere there, but my inclination would be it would be more than that, because we have seen 4 years of reduced registrations in terms of RAF Form 1 and even the capacity. So claims coming through are much lower. I think we saw that. And if the management were to revert back to the normal RAF 1 form, the one per the legislation, chances are there is a lot of claims then that would come through. In terms of the inefficiency of the current average values, I would assume that a new management should then put in place measures to reduce the average value to these undefended, inflated settlements. So there might then be a benefit of a bit of a reduction in the average values in terms of the settlement of those new claims, because one would expect them to be processed efficiently. But in my view, I think your estimate is not too far off. It will be in those ranges. It will be.
No, thank you. So as an actuary, I appreciate that my figure wasn't too bad off. And I think and Chair, this is so important for the people listening, for our country. We've got 500 billion in unrecorded liabilities in the state fiscus. It's worse than Eskom. It is shocking, and I think people have put their heads in their sand intentionally, hoping this problem is going to go away, but it's not going to go away. That 500 billion has to be funded somewhere, and essentially the fuel levy is going to have to go from 2 Rand to 20 Rand to do it. And I think it's a it's a huge train crash coming. 500 billion, and it's actually interesting. I actually looked at the consolidated accounts that National Treasury put out. They actually disclaimed on this basis because of the hole in the RAF that's unaccounted for. And no wonder we got junk status as a country, because we can't actually even rely on our own financial statements. 500 billion is 20% of our national budget. It is just off the charts, and I think it is shocking, and I think as a country we need to wake up that there's a 500 billion hole in the fiscus. And then I'm going to end on just a personal remarks, and I just look at the two affidavits. The one concludes, my actuarial work repeatedly flagged the financial risk of changes in the accounting policy and the operating model. After I persisted in raising these concerns, I was marginalized and ultimately dismissed under irregular process. And then I think it's Mr. Songelwa, this one says, throughout my tenure at the RAF and even after my departure, I've remained committed to the principles of accountability and prudence in public finance. And for me, the great tragedy in all of this is that the RAF have used money that comes from all of us, from the poorest of the poor. Every time somebody fills their car up with petrol, somebody buys food, we're all contributing to the fuel levy. And it just makes me so angry and so like, I actually can't put the words in that they're using that money, the RAF is using that money to pay incompetent board members, incompetent specialists, pay 48,000 for a bucket hat, pay 4 million rand for a year-end RAF function, and to use that money to bully you guys. And I'm really sorry for that. I see that the trauma that it has on you, and as a professional person myself, I've got huge respect for both of you. Hold your heads up high. We're proud of you, and God is good, and he will come through for you guys. And I just want to commend both of you. This is one of the best statements and affidavits that I've seen, and it really talks to your professionalism, your credibility, and that you didn't buckle under the strain. So well done. And I do apologize that our money has been used to bully you guys.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Beasley. It's your turn, Honorable. Let me ask the two gentlemen. You don't want a comfort break, do you? Because we are able to walk in and out, and you not. So, do any of you need a comfort break? Okay, I think the members would like to go home at some point. So, but please just signal to me if that human rights break needs to happen. We are on the final stretch now with the Honorable Maduna. Honorable Maduna, because you were not here in the morning, everybody was here in the morning. We negotiated 20 minutes. But since you just arrived, you get 3 minutes. Okay, 20 minutes, Honorable Maduna.
No, 20 minutes is too much. But nonetheless, let's see where we end. No, thanks, Chair. I'm also not going to be long. Indeed, I was not here in the morning, Chair. I was saying to some of our honorable members, we just had a problem with water at Acacia Park. We did not have water, so we had to use water tankers. So I was saying to some of honorable members that at least now we are feeling what our people have been in some parts of the country have been subjected to by our municipalities of running after water tankers biocommand. On a lighter note, no, thanks, Chair. I'm not going to take the whole 22 minutes. I think it's too much. But one, I have read the affidavits. I did go through much of the documentation. Now, I want to check. My first question would be around to Mr. Songelwa. Ngifuna ukucheka la Mhlekazi. Ngifuna ukubuka. Would I be correct if I assume that the major difference between IPSAS 42 and IFRS 4 is the recognition of the liability?
Yeah.
Sorry, Honorable Matuna, the difference is really in the recognition of the liability.
Oh, thank you. Now, I would want to assume that, well, I think obviously, I think also those are part of the requirements that would then be required by, I'm trying to use the simplest language, I'm just taking me like a grade 2 learner. Those would be what would be required, the evaluation of your liability on yearly basis is what would be required under IFRS 4, right?
Very correct, yes.
Thank you. Now, I want to check, can you just summarily, I think Mr. Charakupa would have to help you. Can you just take me shortly in the process of, as in when the accident happen, a number of people get injured, what is your role there? I will then maybe when you are done, or maybe let me just give you, I'm asking this because yesterday we were with Mr. Forbes. And I would assume that part of the actual analysis that you do would take into account the supplier debt that would rise out of the claims in future, that of a particular accident that would have happened. So that's why I'm saying, can you briefly take me the process that your process to determine the actuals or do the calculation to analyze that this is our debt?
Your eyes appear to be to me. I'm an accountant, is the actuary, so I will hand over to Mr. Charakupa.
Okay, thank you. So, Honorable Member, I would take you to page 25 of my affidavit, paragraph 81. So if you are there, I think then I'll come back to, I'll then come back to paragraph 43 later. So yes, we start on paragraph 81, then we'll go to paragraph 43. So paragraph 81, yeah, you were not here when we covered it earlier. So it shows the timeline in terms of a claim. So the first line there at the bottom is labeled accident date, right? Then the next event is the registration date. So claims that are not yet on the RIF system, right, are regarded as claims in transit or IBNR. So in terms of the actuarial analysis of that, in terms of estimating that, we would then depend on the RTMC data, because what they do, they capture accidents that happens on a daily basis, but they publish the statistics about on a monthly basis, which would show how many cars were involved, how many fatalities, how many injuries, how many serious injuries, and also some data from SEPs would indicate how many accidents would have happened. So then we would look at the historical patterns to say, out of 1,000 accidents, how many claims made it to the RIF system previously? So we then start running.
Sorry, just to disturb. So your basis of the estimations that you made, they are based on the RTMC data and the SAPS data.
Yes, for the first pillar, which is claims in transit. Now, after registration date, the claims are now on the RIF system. And you can see that when they get on the RIF system, they'll start in the registration department. They'll go to a verification and validation, merits assessment, quantum determination, litigation. In the end, if there's no agreement on that, litigation can be on quantum, it can be on merits assessment. So if we then, after we are done with the first pillar, in the second pillar now we are looking at the claims on the RIF system. We can see what claimants are claiming in terms of the various heads of damage, your loss of income, your funeral, your hospital. So we can see that. So we then apply again our actuarial models in terms of all those claims to say, okay, historically claims that came in like this with this kind of injuries and this kind of quantum request, on average, where did they settle? Then we start running models on that. We come up with a number that we called it ORC. So the second pillar is we are running models, but we are running the models on the data on the RIF system. The RIF has registered these claims and they are being processed. Now, the last pillar after the settlement date or the offer date are claims in the payment stage, which means the claims have offers on them. And then C1 there, it just means the claim is an offer on it, but is not yet requested on the payment system. Then C2 there, the claim has an offer and it has already been requested on the payment system so that the Treasury Department can pay it. But claims in C stage are pretty much settled claims. So if you see that arrow at the bottom, it shows that the IPSAS liability, the red one, only looks at claims in the payment stage, which is your offers not yet requested for payment and your requested and not yet paid. It then ignores the claims in stages A and B. So pretty much what changed with the change in accounting system is instead of recording the IFRS-based claims liability, which is that arrow that starts from the accident date to the payment date, the fund started to record a liability only for the claims at the payment stage, which is your offers not yet requested and then your requested not yet paid, if that helps.
No, that helps. Given that, firstly, before I go forward, no, I actually have went through this, but I wanted some more deeper understanding into your model. I'm sure you'll understand. I'm grade 2 when it comes to. So I want to check the integrity of the data and the reliability from subs and RTMC. How did you verify that?
Integrity, I think in terms of completeness, there is a lag. I mean, it doesn't, I mean, especially in the first month, they would have captured a lot of accidents, but it's typically not complete. By the end of 3 months, which is a quarter, they would have captured, I think, a good chunk of the data, but there is a lag in terms of the completeness of the data. So we are aware of that, so we would allow for that. And this is also where we would then compare what would RTMC give us and the specific SEPS data, direct data, because then when you do that, you minimize the variance. Because some of the data would have been recorded at the SEPS police stations database, but it would not have made it to RTMC yet. It is still in transit. It would still, so some police stations submit data to RTMC quicker, some not as quick, and they used to have an integrated system as well before, but I think they then had a period where they had challenges, so data was not captured uniformly across the country. So yeah, data challenges were there and we had them, but then we would then find ways of just minimize the shortfalls in terms of the completeness of the data.
So I would not be far off if I made an assumption that particularly in rural areas where some of the accidents might not be reported rightly after they happened, that then would be excluded from your calculations that you would have made, or you would have relied on historical data. I think that's what accountants do. So that would be correct.
You would be correct that, especially, I mean, for our IBNR, yes, it would then be subject to those shortcomings. So it wouldn't be, 100% accurate estimate.
What was usually, because I believe this is one of the analyses that the manager, the person that deals with reporting that you would have had, what was usually the variation in terms of the actual claims that are submitted or applications that draft received vis-a-vis your calculations or what you would have expected?
In terms of the overall liability, so what we would do is we project how many claims we expect of the ORC, how many we would expect to be settled in the next quarter. This was a quarterly exercise, right? So you project, but in terms of your liability, you project next quarter, then the next quarter in terms of the 6 months, up to 3 or even 4 years out for most of the coverages. But for undertakings or a future medical, that goes long because that depends on the life expectancy. But what we would do on a quarterly basis is then to test the models to say last quarter we estimated that in this quarter we should see this many claims coming through, settling at these average values. What came through in that quarter? Because remember, at the end of the quarter, you now have the advantage of looking back and seeing we actually got this. So it's actual versus expected. We call it actual versus expected analysis to then make adjustments to your model. So some quarters you would overestimate, some quarters you would underestimate, but you then need to react to your models and update based on this upcoming information. So the short answer is there are estimates in terms of your modeling, but as they come through, I mean, it's rare that it will come on point. You then need to keep testing your model as you go, taking advantage of the retrospective view and adjusting your models as you go.
Sorry if I may interrupt. So what type of variances are we talking here in percentage terms? Are we talking single digits, double digits?
I think to a large extent our target was to stay below 10%, and it would have been, fewer instances then where you would go outside of that range.
No, thanks. I think I've established the first leg of what I would have wanted to establish, Chair. Because I think the variances, you know that they would have an impact, a particular impact in terms of when he does the financials. But I think I've established the first leg. No, thanks. I want to check, Mr. Songelwa, in terms of when you moved from IFRAS 4 to this new to IPSAS 42, did you have any change management process in place?
No, actually. And I think the reason for that, it was just affecting finance only. No, we did not have it change management workshop or anything like that, no.
So you are, I believe that you being in an accounting, you would know that, let's say for instance, you want to change accounting policy on anything. In the next financial year, even though you then start effectively change, let's say for instance, you were using a straight method, now you want to use the other method, what they call it a diminishing method. Now, I believe that, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, so that when we are alone at the end, I do not say wrong things. I would assume that the following financial year and the following financial year, you run with both the method, with the one that you had been previously implementing and the new one. Would that be a correct assumption?
Very good assumption. However, I actually suggested that if we go for IFRS 4, for rather IPSAS 42, and you've got an old one, I remember saying it to Mr. Charakupa as well, continue doing evaluations in case you are found wanting in your new thing. So you keep them until until the other one works. Like when you change a system from the old one, you run them parallel until the other one can really run. So to answer you, you're 100% correct, but that was not done. It was just moved and forgotten about the other one. There was no parallel run, as you say. No.
No, okay. No. I want to, when did you again leave RAF?
I left RAF on the 17th of April this year. The contract was ending on 30 September this year. Having joined them, because you were not here, having joined them on the 1st of October 2015.
So the board approved the financial statements and the change in accounting policy nonetheless? As of when the change in accounting policy was being effected?
Yes, I think that has been presented to this committee as well as PICOT, and that the board took responsibility for that change in accounting, and they indeed did approve the financial statements.
In your affidavit, you mentioned that it's NUMSA that would have wrote to the minister about the concerns that there are crises at RAF, right?
Yes.
If I may ask Mr. Songelwa, how did Mr. Songelwa get to learn about this letter? Songelwa.
No, it's fine.
Songelwa,
Pretend you're calling my name and then just say, yeah, just remove the Zeto.
What number was it? Let me first check as to where it was, then I can reference and answer appropriately. Maybe as a side thing, actually, if I may say, I was a member of the union. Though I'm a general manager, and it's odd, I requested not NUMSA. First it was SATAU, then I was definitely not a member of NUMSA. Was the current union at RAF now? But the current one, I was a member up to until I resigned. If I'm answering you appropriately. Personally, I do believe that there should be a rapport or good relationship between management and the union. And why I'm saying this is that, for example, when you negotiate things such as increases, if you are transparent and open to them, you find that you work nicely with them. They actually even understand the situation because there's transparency, there's openness, you work together. I believe in that. So, but for this one, I just find out as to how did I get them. But generally, I've got a good relationship with the unions. When I was going through challenges at RAF, for example, I would ask one of the union members, I don't know whether to mention his name, to accompany me instead of, I'm GM already, but just to come and represent me and then argue and assist. Very, very knowledgeable with labor-related matters. So it's no wonder that I might have access to the union. I don't know if I'm different, but I really, yeah.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
That would be your last question, Honorable Matu. You of only 5 minutes when you started.
No, I think, but Chair, is my last question.
You have over 20 minutes already.
You? Okay, Chair. No, I want to check. It's just that, Chair, I'm puzzled. I must say this. I must put it into you. I'm puzzled. I think, one, we must agree that we ourselves, as parliamentarian, we need to do something around the funding model, and that thing of RAF is not working. I think that's what we are all agree. It's just not working, and I think the way the change was managed. The thing is, I'm puzzled because I had more questions, but now I'm answered and I'm just defeated. So that's why, as if you see that, is as if I'm confused. I'm literally defeated. Yeah. But my last question would have been around the issue of the panels. particularly the medical one, because Mr. Forbes, we were with Mr. Forbes yesterday, and Mr. Ford, and we got to learn that the way that these panels worked, they did not go through any bid processes or anything. They just operated the way they operated. Now, I want to check the data in which they themselves, as one, it is just in two folds. I think both of you, and then I will be done. One, the data in which they collected in these transfers and everything, were they part of your modeling, of your actuarial modeling that you are using to determine future liability for RAF? That's one. Two, I want to check in terms of the invoices that you were receiving from them, what was your role? Thank you. Those are the last two questions.
Okay, thank you. So, Honorable, in terms of, I think you asked the question earlier as well on the supplier claims. So, I think on page 8 or on paragraph 39, there is a table of the actuarial evaluation summary that we did back in 2020. So it shows the split. I think you were asking about the split between supplier and personal claims. It shows that supplier claims liability at that point was 2.2 billion, and then 315.7 billion was the total. So in which means that your personal claims, including undertakings and legal cases, would then have been just the 315.7 minus the 2.2 billion, so about 313 billion would then still be personal, and then your supplier claims would be 2.2. And supplier claims are usually, small claims, and many of them, because they are invoices from suppliers, so they usually go through the system quicker. So I think in terms of the values, I just wanted to point that out. I will then hand over to Mr. Songelwa.
No, I think you've answered all, Honorable Maduna. You've been answered, I guess.
Switch on the mic.
What time is it now? What was the next question, Honorable Maduna?
I wanted to check your role in processing the supplier role,
experts,
particularly the medical experts.
The panel of medical experts. I wouldn't have an answer for that one. I think it would be worth to ask. I can ask the supply chain management the process. Please, I don't have the answer. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon.
I'm saying you did not have a role.
A role, no.
Okay.
I didn't know.
You heard that he said in the payment.
I had a role in the payments, yes, but not the role.
That's what he's asking.
Appointment and the panels, no.
He's asking about the payment.
Oh, yes. So the payments would be handled by Treasury Department, where the other payments are happening. I would definitely not have a role as well, no.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Madlala, do you have any questions?
Yes.
I don't know. When you gave it a pass, you didn't say anything. You just said no, move on.
No, I said I'll come back to my questions. Can I go through, Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I want to first establish, Mr. Songelwa. Prior to 2019, the former acting CFO, Mr. Retswale, came in 2019, right? Okay.
Microphone, please.
Microphone, yeah.
He came on the 9th of September 2019, Mr. Retswale.
So prior to 2019, the accounting standards that were applied at RAF was crap. Is that correct?
Correct, Honorable Madlala.
Did you find that there was an issue with it?
We tried before my time. I came in 2015. My colleagues tell me they asked for an opinion from PwC specific They first asked for a legal opinion as to how to treat the claims liability. And they then PwC advised how to treat the claims liability, and that opinion was that what then was applied in terms of IFRS 4, for example, and that was it.
Did you find that there was a problem with CRAP?
No, I never found that was a problem. No.
Sorry, can I? This is just terminology. GRAP is the government policy framework. IFRS, is the standard. Okay. Yeah.
So did you find that there was a problem with the
first thing?
Did I find that there was a problem with IFRS? We call it IFRS. No, there was no. I didn't find that there was a problem with IFRS. No.
Okay. So you spoke about the contracts that were extended. I'm moving from that point. I will arrive somewhere. You spoke about the contracts that were extended, including your contract. Can you just give me the timelines again? You said the acting CFO came in September. Your contract was ending when, and when was it extended? Okay. For 5 years.
My contract was ending on 30 September 2020. It was extended in September 2019. That is a year before. So it had enough time. And the idea is, I think I did say it, that for executives and general managers or people when you've got contract with, it's worth to give them an extension at least a year before.
All right.
Because if you don't do that. So, but to answer you, it was in September 2019.
So the former acting CEO came on you said on which date in September?
On the 9th of September, it was on a Monday.
And when was your contract extended?
It was actually signed on a Friday, the 6th of September.
Okay, was it only your contract that was extended, or if you know, were any other senior managers' contracts extended just literally a working day before the arrival of the acting CEO?
If I may say, the question is very good. This question was ventilated at CCMA, and it was that's what RAF was advancing. And it was proven that there was nothing untoward because it's not signed by one person. It went to HR, it went to the CEO, the acting CEO at the time. But to answer you, I am not sure whether there were other general managers whose contract were signed on that day. But generally, the other general managers' contracts were extended at different times.
All right, so you wouldn't know if any other general managers had extensions just prior to the arrival of the acting CFO?
I wouldn't know.
All right, no problem. You said what was the reason behind this new extension of 5 years? Was it a normal? I think you said there was a different arrangement, and then this time around they extended it for 5 years. Or if it was a normal thing that, because I think if I remember correctly, you said they would extend it for some months, or they would let you know if it's ending. But this time around, a decision was made that it would be extended for a full 5 years. Just clarify me around that. If it was a norm,
yes,
it's how it has always been happening, or it was a new thing that was happening.
When I joined RAF, there was no expectation that your contract would be extended. But around 2016 or 2017, I can check the policy, there was a thing that said that the GM's contracts could be extended by not a period longer than the original period. In other words, you had 3 years, you can only get 3 years. If you're 5 years, you can be extended up to 5 years, which is what happened to me.
If you know, had that policy been applied before your case?
Oh, yes. There are general managers whose contracts were extended by 5 years. So my case was not in isolation. It was a norm for other general managers as well. And this is a fact.
Okay. You are saying that there were advices or recommendations that you made. I think you said, around the accounting standards and so forth. Advising. So were those in writing? Do you have evidence of that? This is where I'm trying to get, because I think the chair explained we're trying to look at the overall picture of things. And what I would like to understand is what happened in the system that collapsed the entire thing, such that there seemed to be an impression that is created generally that it was difficult to advise, or it was difficult to have your advice heard. So I'm thinking in my head, if we were to suggest and make recommendations, what could we say must be solved? Is it a policy issue, or if we find say, hypothetically speaking, this acting CFO was a difficult person. So if you find another difficult person 5 years down the line, could we arrive back at the same place? So that is why I'm checking if you made recommendations in writing, there was no response, you escalated them, what happened in terms of consultation or giving guidance as a specialist person in the field, and that guidance not being attended to, and what recourse before maybe giving up and ending up going with the flow. If you can just summarize that for me.
So the acting CFO, the acting CEO, Mr. Liswalo, suggested that I look into the claims liability. It is of a huge amount. He even mentioned SASSA, that for example, SASSA doesn't have this big liability. I did a desktop research. I checked the financials for SASSA. I found that indeed they don't have a liability. So if Raf
sorry to cut you, I want us to be economical about the time.
Okay.
So I expect your response to say, I did prepare a report, if it was a report, or I wrote an email, or we were in a meeting and I did give this advice. How did you give the advice? And what was the reaction that led to the non-compliance or non-adherence to your advice? And whether you escalated it after that, because there's above Mr. Litwalo, there's a board. So, or whether you presented it to the board and it was defied. Just give me specifics.
I'll summarize. Thank you so much. So it was verbal, but what sort of comes as evidence now is on the 2nd of June when he wrote me a letter saying that I am removing you from acting CFO to back to your substantive position of JM Finance. There was a line item said one of the reasons is the non-implementation of the change in accounting policy. That I've got in writing. So our communication was verbal, but thanks goodness on the 2nd of June he wrote it that I'm moving you. One of the reasons is your not implementing the change in accounting policy.
Okay, so it was verbal. You advised in a meeting where the minutes, and what was his response? Or he ignored it and just said, go ahead and implement.
I said that we cannot, RAF is different from SASSA. SASSA is an agent of the Department of Social Development, and on that basis, RAF uses GRAP. Department of DSD is a cash modified.
Mr. Songelwa, my apologies. I'm following the process flow of information and advice sharing, and how was it done, so that we can say in future maybe we need professional advices from departments should come in form of reports, and if they are not adhered to, we recommend that they must be escalated to the board or to the minister and so forth and so on, because we have arrived at a point after many years where we're in this crisis situation, and we must be able to recommend systematic interventions for future future preventative measures. So I need you to say, if you are saying it's verbal, so was it in a formal meeting or it was just you and him in the office, and what did he say? And did he say I'm ignoring it, this was proceeding, or he said I'll process it, and then he ignored you, and then you saw an instruction that you must implement, and then you decided to escalate or not to escalate? I just need that sequence or process flow of giving guidance and escalation where defied.
It was verbal in terms of the exchange saying that it cannot be implemented. And then on the 2nd of June, I received a letter that said the CEO is not happy with the non-implementation of the change in accounting policy. He actually mentioned that the CEO and the board are not happy with this. So I take it that he shared the information with the board, but I did not share the information. But no, did I escalate it? But he did mention in the letter that was taking me from acting CFO to my position that the board was not happy.
Okay, so between the time that you gave that verbal advice and the time that you got a letter saying you must go back to your substantive post, what is the period length? And I assume that in between the time there was a further instruction for you to action, because if the letter says then at the end the reason is for your non-actioning after the advice, I want to assume, but just give me the highlight of that. So between that time when you gave an advice, was there any communication which said, following your advice, we're proceeding, so you are expected to then action accordingly, and then the letter at a later stage, which then says your defiance and all of that?
Maybe I should get the wording of the letter. It's not so much of non-actioning, other not non-implementation or not the change in accounting policy not being implemented. So it's not like, because if it was non-action, I think I would have been charged for gross insubordination. There is no way I would get instruction from the CEO not to implement it. So a question of giving an opinion that we cannot, and then he says because of not, I don't know how to put it in English. I understood what he meant. In fact, on the 2nd of June when I left, then there was...
Can try is closer.
I'm trying that. Then there was a person to take over and run with the project anyway. So my understanding was that I did not implement the change in accounting policy. A new person came in and actually went ahead with the project.
All right. So I take it that you cannot remember the length of the period between the advice.
No, I cannot.
And the decision to remove you. You cannot.
No, I cannot. I cannot.
No, it's fine.
I can speculate that since the CEO came on the 9th of September, in between 9th September and the 2nd of June, but I cannot really remember as to what time actually.
No, it's fine then. So generally, how would you describe briefly the because when you're acting CEO, I want to believe that you said acting CFO. I want to believe that you said in the executive management. So I need you to just briefly tell me about the organization's culture of consultation or in consultation. So how were these decisions made? Besides that, there was PwC. So the CFO, acting CEO came and said, this is the vision, blah, 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 and executive management, what is your comments? Or it was a matter of, this is the direction, this is where we're going, we expect you to implement. I need the culture of consultation particularly during the period where you are sitting as a member of the executive management.
Microphone. Sorry.
Sorry. Sometimes the instructions will be given verbal, and then you run with the project. And sometimes there will be meetings. So in the case, for example, of changing accounting policy, it was not a minuted thing when a meeting. The CEO requested the acting CFO, which was me, to consider a change in accounting policy. And as I say, citing SASSA as an example, and I came with this answer that SASSA is an agent and it cannot be implemented. And as I said, then on the 2nd of June, there was this change. Somebody else ran with the project, but there was nothing. There were no ex-core decisions. This will be done. Sometimes it will be verbal. Some of them would go through ex-core, but not all of them. So it was just a different culture, so to speak.
Okay, that is what I wanted to clearly understand, because I understand that such serious decisions will come in a form of recommendations to the board from EXCO. And they will need some approvals at different levels before the implementation. So as an acting CFO, you are saying at the times it will just be him saying to you, this serious decision I am making, you go and implement.
Actually, I can make an example. That's a very classic one. We're sitting in the boardroom as EXCO. We hear that the sheriff is attaching the bank. The CEO says, Victor, as a finance person, go and sort out. In fact, he said, go and cancel the contract of the bank. Will not mention the bank. Then I said, no, it's a long process. The meeting goes on. I'm aware that I've got an assignment to consider cancelling the contract of the bank. And then he says, stand up now, go and cancel the contract. Then I what do I do? I got out and I went to my office. That was kind of thing. Because practically, I cannot just go and cancel the contract. There's steps to be taken, whatever. So this is a fact. That's what
thank you for that example. I'm moving towards closure, Chair, because I want to understand what is your principle in terms of being expected or given instructions which we may deem as illegal or unprocedural instructions. So you are saying practically you wouldn't just go and cancel. But now you've been given an instruction. So what did you do? You went and cancelled?
I actually went to my desk. I was anticipating how do you cancel a contract? Because there's a process. SAMS, you can just, and what the reasons, and you cannot be instructed by CEO to cancel it. And as I say, I was in the boardroom. I got out. I speculated. I said, I'm buying time. Let me see, maybe, like a child, I'm old. And then I said, let me just do some movement. I went to legal. Legal advised me, how do we cancel it? No, it's not possible. And I understood it. It was just to say, if he asked me, what did you do? At least I did go to a legal to find out how to get about it. So at least that bought time. And then later on, I came and said, which legal will assist. They were looking into the matter. And that was it, for example. So you just play around and buy time, because if I push it, it might result to cross and subordination, and I might be home. So you have to be very, very, very careful.
Oh, so I think I guess it's a matter of immediately. So it did not say immediately.
You know where this comes from. You know where this immediately thing comes. It comes from the ad hoc committee there with Minister Mkulu. Yeah.
So at least you understood immediately, not to be meaning now. To be meaning get into a process of of doing that. Okay. Now maybe as a last question is maybe just two two recommendations that you would make, or two things that you'd say systematically if they were in place. You think that some of these things could have been avoided. I think we have noted the legal aspect, like you have indicated, the need to change legislation and all of that, which I think Parliament accepts fault somehow for not fast-tracking that. But organizationally and systematically, what are the avenues or what are the things that you think had they been in place, some of these things could have been avoided? Someone said, we felt like no one was listening to us. You know, you are narrating a story of 2019. You are here now in 2025. Maybe if someone had heard that story then, or someone with authority would have heard that story, maybe such certain things could have been prevented. Remember, we're trying to say what preventative measures could we recommend and put them systematically to ensure that we don't arrive at the same situation. So better people to learn from can be yourselves. Maybe just two things, and then the gentleman next to you can also just share two recommendations. That's all I'm asking. Systematic recommendations, critical though, in terms of the functionality of the organization. Thank you. That will be my last question.
Thank you so much for this question. One of the things that I found lacking at RAF was the board's availability or to check things. It looks like to me they. Okay, I stand to be correct in this. I didn't see them. Like, how would the accounting policy thing not be challenged? They were in support of the CEO's decision. Sometimes you need to agree to you need to disagree to your English. You need to agree to disagree. So I'm finding the board. I'm thinking actually, like you would have a meeting with the chair who comes and greets the staff, and we put any grievance or anything we want to raise. That never happened. It was the board was not accessible. It ends with, in my view, I would end with the CEO, and then I'm scared to even go past him because I did not trust the board to raise anything. They were not visible, and a very, very important thing. And there was a stage in the board when you need a board that is diverse, it's got experience, and knowledgeable, and they've got the right skill. There was a stage in the 11 or 10 member board where there was no chartered accountant. Yet you deal with this complex financial account or accounting transactions for the RAF. You at any time at least have one CA, you might have two. I mean, what the numbers is now. So so I felt that maybe the accounting profession is not taken serious, and then where would you get the advice from? There's one that was there. I think she left in August 2024, for example. After that, there was a gap again. So that kind of thing. So I think that the board should be very solid board that has got this, the skills or the skills that I've mentioned. It's very, very, very critical. Because if you got right it there, at least
I think I've captured the first one, which is board effectiveness, accessibility, and composition. You know, the diversity and composition. What's the second one?
The second one would be allow the staff to be creative, innovative. The environment, in my observation, was toxic. There was just a bit like fear. So people that are fearful will not really be able to express themselves or do what you just do. The little you can do, don't go beyond that kind of thing. So a culture that is just conducive for employees to express themselves, obviously within limits and being respectful, but generally not operating under fear and that kind of thing. So it's fear stuff that is free. And I think I mentioned, for example, that rapport between the union and management, not us and them, we're together and that kind of thing.
I think that's the problem. If you don't, it's fine. That is the problem which we are raising now. It's not a systematic solution. So you may get in future an acting CFO who does not want the union, who operate in fear, because those are personality traits. But systematically, you must be able to address and close the gap of personality traits, because we can't guarantee that you will not find that particular trait in future. But we must say, we must put in place systems that are so effective that at least it minimizes, it cannot cancel altogether, if you have a recommendation.
Okay. Maybe it's quality, not the quantity. Let me stand on the strong board, because I think the other things will be, if the board is strong, it can then encourage the implementation of these governance structures, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
Mr. Charakupa, if you've got anything.
I think Mr. Songelwa covered me. I think a strong, effective board would solve a lot of the issues. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I will just ask some questions, not many, I promise. And I know I always say that, but it truly won't be many at all. I am just going to ask you to go to Annexure VS7 on the big file, Annexure VS7. So this is the Mora this is the Mora opinion, I think, if I can call it, or advice. Is it VS? Yes, so go to VS7 and go to section 4 specifically. And that's you, Mr. Songelwa. Since this was in your time and you were the acting CFO, and so this is the advice that the Road Accident Fund first sought about the change in accounting standard. And the reason this is relevant specifically is we did ask them if they took any legal or technical advice before embarking on the change in accounting policy, which then resulted in litigation and expenditure. So I hope the members have got, it's page 3 of that document, but it's section 4. Overall conclusion, based on the analysis above, we conclude as follows. Can you just read those bullet points?
So, Richard, maybe just a point of correction. This is issued on the 8th of April 2021. I stopped being an acting CFO on the 2nd of June 2020. However,
I see.
However, I was involved. I was in this meeting when this.
Okay, you were in the meeting. Good.
Yes,
okay, that's helpful. Okay, so can you just read that?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Overall conclusion. Based on the analysis above, we conclude as follows. There is uncertainty in the recognition of social benefits in the South African public environment. Further, legal opinion should be obtained to distinguish between an insurance contract and social benefits. The ASB is currently in the process of developing an appropriate standard for accounting for social benefits, which is projected to only be finalized in year 2023. And RAF has adopted IFRS 4 as the accounting policy since the 2014-2015 year, and no major issues were identified by the external auditors. Therefore, we recommend that the RAF continues to apply IFRS 4 until the ASB has finalized the standards for social benefits.
Okay, so what happened to this opinion?
In this meeting that I was in, when the Mora auditors presented, it was said that they must retract this opinion.
Who said so?
At the time, it was the acting CFO.
Can you give us a name?
Do I have to?
Yes, we will. We are protected. Don't worry.
Miss Boitumelo Mabusela.
All right, we will deal with her then. Did she give a reason?
No, I think the in my opinion, I stand to be corrected. Maybe the opinion didn't favor what she wanted. I do not know.
Okay, let's rather ask her. Let's not speculate. Okay, so that's fine. So I think I'm done with you for today. Hopefully, can we then, Mr. Charakupa, go to paragraph 80 of your affidavit.
Yes, Chair, I'm there.
All right, I just want to make sure that I'm there. Okay, just for completeness, paragraph 80 of your affidavit has got what you're explaining to Honorable Maduna. I am not going to ask you to re-explain. I will just put a proposition to you and you tell me if I'm correct. So the old accounting standard recognized that entire table in terms of the sort of the actuarial estimate of the liabilities.
Correct.
The new standard only recognized C2. Would that be correct?
C1 and C2.
C1 and C2.
Yes.
So if you are in A and in B, the numbers don't make it into the financial statements, correct?
Correct.
Okay. At the time of the change in the accounting policy, would there have been a lot of claims that were caught up that were in process in various stages? Either somebody is at a rough office registering, they're in verification, merit assessment, etc. in court. Would that be true?
Yes, there would have been a lot of claims in those pillars.
Okay. Then we had a session here with various colleagues of yours from claims. As I understand, and I think it's itemized elsewhere in your affidavit, the number of documents that were then needed under the new standard in order to move from A to B. In other words, when you claim for the first time, you needed to have medical specialist reports and all of these kind of things so that your claim can then be registered. Would that be a correct characterization?
Yes, that would be a correct characterization based on the new RAF 1 form.
Okay, that's fine. So if the intention is to borrow, then this would suggest to me that if you move that number or all of those, in other words, you're so efficient, to operate well, you move them to column C, then you can't solve the problem of liabilities because they become significant again.
Correct, yes. That red arrow will just become bigger because it will now be eating into B, and if you really push it harder, into space of A. So yes, your liability will become bigger again because it will be realized faster.
Okay, so I asked the staff, and this was for me, I asked them to print a portion of the latest annual report by the Road Accident Fund, and for them to just place it before the members, because I wanted us to work with, to just have some of the latest numbers. So if you can, do you have a copy of this? You do. Let's move to page 29. I promise we will be done in less than 10 minutes. Let's move to page 29. Can you see the orange column there?
Yes.
What is the label?
Total outstanding.
Right. What is the number in 2021?
420,676.
What is the number in 2025?
445,782.
Okay. Would that category of claims on that table that is on paragraph 80, where would those claims be sitting, be languishing?
So that will all be in stage B. Some would be in that registration pillar. Some of them would be in that verification validation pillar. Some of them in merits assessment. Some of them in quantum determination. Some of them in litigation. But all of those would be sitting in B because they are recorded on the RIF system.
Okay. So what we see then from here, from the RAF's annual report on page 29, is that since 2021, there are claims that have been languishing at the Road Accident Fund, not dealt with, a consistent number. Because when you look at the claims finalized column, which is green, in 2021, the number was 99,000 that was finalized. That dropped in 2022 to 83,104, went up in 2023 to, well, actually dropped further. It was 107,000, 86,000, 63,000 in 2024. I see it has gone up slightly in 2025. So what is that number for 2025, the end of the previous financial, the financial year ended in March?
Yes, that would be the financial year ending 31 March 2025.
31 March 2025, so 78,000. So then let's deal with the claims registered, which is the blue column. In 2021, what was the number of new claims registered?
It was 156,313.
In 2025?
65,732.
Okay, so that would be a drop of more than 50. I mean, if you compare the two different years, by more than half, right?
Yes, but we're still just before 2021 is 2020. So if you then bring in 2020 there, yes, the number would be like much lower relative to 2020 base.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Can we, on the same document, go to page 31? Claims categories and averages. Okay, you've taken us through a version of this earlier on, right? I think that is the table that you said, if you look at anything at the RAF, if you look at the annual report, you gotta look at that stuff, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the average value per claim, and you said we need to look at, can you just explain, so let's leave out all claims. You said let's focus on personal claims, because what I'm concerned with is the person who's sitting at home waiting for a claim, and their claim is one of those 400 and some odd claims that are not going anywhere and are never going to go anywhere really. Can you take us through the meaning of those numbers? So the average value per claim and the total individual claim per settlement. Can you just explain for the members what those numbers mean?
Yes, so it means the very first line in terms of all claims, that's the expenditure on claims. So in March 2021, the year ending 31 March 2021, that was 35.5 billion. 31 March 2022, 43.4 billion was spent in total. But of that, 42.5 was personal claims. Similarly, 31 March 2023, in total, it was 46.4 billion, but personal claims was 45.4 billion. Then 2024, the total expenditure was 45.6 billion, but the bulk of that again is personal claims at 44.8 billion. And the recent year, the total spent is 46.7 billion, and the bulk of that again is personal claims at 46 billion. And the second aspect in terms of the average, in terms of the overall average, again, that second line, we will read it together with the graph on. Let me just go to the graph on, one second. On paragraph 123 on page 41. So what that shows is claims have been a lot more expensive starting in 2020, 2021. After the 70% increase, it remained there. And as of March 2025, that average has increased from 138,000 in March 2020 to 348,100. What that means is claims have become more expensive to settle. So in the same amount of money, which is around the 46 billion mark, 45 billion mark, you now can afford to pay fewer claims because they are now expensive, especially as we highlighted before, the root causes of that being default judgments and inflated claims. Money that would have paid maybe 3 claimants is only paying 1 claimant. If we look at an example of a fair value of 1 million claim settling for 3 million, that 3 million would have paid 3 people, but because there is no quality assurance around that in terms of determining the fair value, that million end up paying just 1 claim. So your number of claims then being paid by the more or less the same amount of money in the 45 billion range is much fewer. And when we go to the finalized claims table, we see that number just stays down there. But the expenditure as given per this table is up there. Thank you.
Would I be correct in saying that if the Road Accident Fund were to make a big effort to reduce that orange column on page 29, which is the claims that are languishing, that people complain about, that are languishing somewhere at the Road Accident Fund, if that average value per claim is sustained, the Road Accident Fund will get into negative cash flow on a month-to-month basis. They just won't have money.
Correct.
Okay, I'm nearly done. Can we go to page 33 of the latest annual report? Are you with me there?
Yes.
Okay, can we look under current assets? There's cash and cash equivalents in 2024, 31 March 2024. What is that number?
Okay. Sorry. Cash and cash equivalents, the top line in March 2024, that's 815. But yeah, I'll just defer to Bravik to run with.
No, that's fine, Bravik, if you can. So if you can just read that. So what is that number?
Right, thank you. Cash and cash equivalents is 2123.
No. 31 March 2024.
2024, 815 million.
Okay, in 2025, 31 March, 12 months later?
2123. That is it.
What is that number in full?
2,123,000,000 rand.
So, that would be cash in the bank for the Road Accident Fund at the end of the financial year?
Yes, Chair.
Would I be correct then in my assertion that despite having 445,782 claims outstanding and finalizing fewer and fewer claims, the Road Accident Fund had a cash pile of over 2 billion just sitting in the bank?
As at 31st March 2025, maybe I may qualify that the money from SARS is received on the 25th day of the month. So you find that in a month, like it's year end, it's hard to chase that money and make all the payments. So the big balance would have been made by that reason, that it came on the 25th, fewer days to make the payments, hence a higher balance to answer why they've got so much money.
Thank you. That is very helpful. Thank you. It brings a perspective on the number. And then the final number that I'm looking for is sorry.
I just want to check how much monthly that you receive.
So if you take the total revenue somewhere, you divide it by 12 to get it's about 4 billion per month. But just to be sure, don't waste time. Where's the income statement? So if you take that 50 divided by 12, it will give an average, and that's the amount. It's about 4 billion per month.
It's about 4 billion. Okay. So the final question. So I just want to find the interest and investment income number.
On page 34?
It will be on page 34.
Yes, in the income statement.
Okay. So that number last year, which is where we started with the road accident fund, so last year was 702 million.
Yes, Chair.
And then the following year, 683, which is this much. I just have a question. What kind of cash balances do you have to run on average in order to earn nearly 700 million in interest?
So what happens is you receive this 4 billion on average per month. It gets distributed. I think bulk of it goes to CPD. The Reserve Bank banking thing gives better interest than and other banks as well for equity. So that 4 billion will be sitting in there. You make the payments. So what tends to happen is that RAF tends to have higher balances throughout the year. For example, end April to end March to end February. And by so doing, you earn higher interest in these months. And then at year end and March, the money is now chased to make the payments so that the balance at the end will show a lesser amount as reflected in the financials. This is factually correct information. In other words, if there was a way of asking, for example, the monthly balances of the cash and cash equivalents from April 2024 to March 2025, ending with that 2123 figure, for example, you'll find that on the other months, these balances were high as 4 billion, and et cetera, but towards the end, it's then reduced. That is where this earning high interest is coming from.
Was there a policy at the Road Accident Fund around the amount of cash cover on a sort of measured, I suppose the cash cover is measured on a month, it would be kind of a monthly metric, I suppose. Was there a policy at the RAF of how much cash you need to have on hand in order to be able to carry your operations, your obligations?
Not as such. What drives the balances in the bank, in the cash, is, for example, you will take that claims request in RNYP. I think we're all familiar with it now. So it's your age analysis. It's normally you have got about, say, 8 billion as a total. So you look into it and age it. What items are sitting in 180 days that need to be paid? Which items are still less than 180 days? So to as opposed to having cash thing, is more driven by what needs to be paid at that point in time. If all of them have not reached the 180, those one will not be paid except where the suppliers, etc., etc. So it's not so much of you must have so much as your balance. It's driven by the age analysis of the RNYP. Previously, would not, because there was not this 180 thing that was obtained from a court thing, which is a good thing in terms of giving us a relief. You would pay the older ones 180, you would pay 150, you would pay the after 150, 120, up to, you would go up to 90 if the fund allows you. So you would have lesser balances. At no stage you would have a balance more than 1 billion, for example, because the idea was to pay as much as possible, drain the money, because we're not thinking was that we don't have to accumulate interest, we need to pay the claimants. Rather, the claimants get the money and make their interest as opposed to us making an interest. I'm just saying this, that was the thing. So there's no, in my time, there was no specific amount that should be kept. I do not know now. Maybe policies would have been revised.
Okay, no, we will talk to them about it. So, I mean, a comment, I mean, and this is a comment, and you can comment on it, both of you, or not. Man, would I be wrong to say the current model and legislation of the RAF is a no-hoper, given the extent of the obligations of the Road Accident Fund in terms of the benefits that it must pay out versus the funding model? I mean, those 400 and some odd thousand, even if the RAF were to hire 2,000 people to move them, there actually just wouldn't be money available for them.
Strange enough, Chair, in 2019, September, I was in Parliament presenting the year-end results. I did raise that. I was actually finding my name. I did raise that at that stage, the RAF was not sustainable. Something needed to be done. So to answer you, yes, the situation still persists. The money that we get in on a monthly basis is not enough to service the money we're paying out. In other words, when you settle claims, the claims that are settled are always more than the money coming in. That results in this RNYP growing. It is not sustainable at all.
So the law must change.
Soonest, definitely.
Charakupa?
Yes, I agree with the same sentiments. Something has to be done on the legislative side. Thank you.
I have heard of the road accident fund paying for dog walkers as part of the. We'll still ask, but seriously, this is not a joke. Dog walkers and all this, which I just think is madness, if you ask me. But that's just my opinion. Honorable members and everyone, I am satisfied. So I don't know if it's okay to adjourn here. Don't want people who haven't had water to kill me.
No, thanks, Chair. Just before you adjourn, I want to check something. Mr. Pravi, through you, Chair, I want to check. It's just that I've not verified. Has IFRAS 4 been phased up and replaced by IFRAS 17?
Yes, correct, 100% correct. IFRAS 4 has been changed to IFRAS 17.
So I believe that then when we say now we are correcting things as RAF, we would expect RAF to go back to IFRAS 17 now, as things stand.
100% correct, actually. Yes, that would be exactly, you're right. Principles are the same, just that updated. Very good point.
I was worried you numbers people like going down this rabbit hole. Yo, every time you get started, I just think you. So, Mr. Songelwa and Mr. Charakupa, I want to... Oh, sorry, I didn't see. I thought you were packing.
No, just two clarities, Chair. One, on the page 25, I asked this earlier on, but unfortunately, other commitments had an impact on my participation. The issue of the direct claims being stopped, that has a bearing on this whole conversation. We really need to ascertain, was there a formal instruction that direct claims must be stopped?
From my side, that's a very good question. I do not recall. I do not know. I'm in finance, remember, so that would be more of a operations matter.
Yes, I think in terms of a formal instruction, I wouldn't know. Where I saw the statistics on direct claims would be on the number of claims on the database finalized in the annual report. I think there's pages where in the annual report, I think I have those pages, but I can provide them, where it is stated in there in the annual report that the registrations, I think for 2021, 2022, I think there was 0, in 2021, I think there was 0 again there. And the comment that's made in there in the annual report was that there was a strategic change in direction. So in terms of anything that comes close to a written comment around direct claims is that one in the annual report that I've seen. Besides that, I don't know in terms of, on the operation side, did they really get a directive, oral or written? I wouldn't know. But I will just confirm that annual report page numbers where the comment that I'm referring to is.
Thank you very much. Mr. Songelwa and Mr. Charakupa, I want to thank both of you. It's been a long journey of preparation with the team from Parliament, Ms. Ibrahim and Ritabile and Amanda and Sis Ntombi and Denzel. Thank you very much. And Dando. Hey. Yo. Okay. Lungisa, everybody, thank you so much. I want to thank both of you for the commitment to helping with this process. the preparation, your obsession about even decimal points, which was really frustrating that it should be comma 4 instead of comma 3, which drove me nuts. But thank you for doing that, because we need as accurate information as possible. This has assisted us in terms of what kind of questions we can canvass with the decision makers later on between the board and management at various stages of the organization. So thank you very much. I hope you travel safely back. I hope you get good rest tonight. And honestly, I thank both of you just for being here until this late at night at our request. So thank you very much. Honorable members, we adjourn.